Quotation from myself, segment 76, quotation number 930. All my life I enjoyed talking to women, and not only because they possess superior to men conversational skills, the widely held opinion to which I, however, do not subscribe, but because such encounters have not only provided me with a fresh perspective on the things I knew, but also allow me to glimpse into the part of life which was totally unknown to me, either from my own or my male friends' experience. But as I both look back and observe myself now, I realize that substantial difference in age between me and my female interlocutor was always a constant in such a conversation. When I was young, the women I used to enjoy talking to the most were of my mother's or even my grandmother's age. And now when I reach this stage of life myself, I noted the most interesting discussion I have are with women who are young enough to be my daughters or pretty soon granddaughters. I personally attribute this to the fact that because of significant age difference in both situations, any possibility of sexual involvement are so remote as practically non-existent, which gives both of us this precious and rare liberty in relationship between men and women to be what we essentially are, just different human beings, and not simply male and female, perpetuating acting the nature prescribed respective gender roles. Finally, there is also this additional benefit a man can derive from talking to a woman. Wives and girlfriends are excluded. The comfort of feeling that if at some point in conversation it may seem that he knows more about this or that particular topic and is able to come up with perhaps more interesting and innovative approach to it, a woman, due to difference in the age, usually not begrudge his knowledge or cleverness, and won't try to get out of her ways to prove that this is not true, which men, when talking to each other, usually do. 931. Life and death are as inseparable as the two sides of a coin. And no matter what man invent to escape death, it becomes its very cause only under the different disguise. Consider, for instance, the deadly contagious diseases that periodically used to decimate world population. To discover their causes and to find the means to fight these plagues, the enormous scientific and technological progress had to be made first. But such a progress would have been unthinkable without the widespread of education, which in its turn used the printing press as its main tool. Now, the printing of millions of books requires a huge amount of paper, printing ink, various chemicals, machinery, etc., etc. Their production has caused enormous industrial pollution in such a degradation of the environment that it has triggered the explosion of another 10 plagues, as deadly as the old ones. The vicious circle was closed. Or take another example, the modern refrigeration. It prevents food from going bad and thus saves people from food poisoning, quite a common cause of diseases and deaths in the past. But the gases which are used to run refrigerators are found to be the main culprit in catastrophic depletion of the first of the Earth's ozone layer, which allows the increasing amount of radiation to reach the Earth's surface, causing proliferation of the skin cancer and probably other forms of it as well. Again, we see that the means to avoid one kind of death only produces another kind. The thing which help us and the thing which hurt us are the same. There is no escape. 931a. At this stage of my life, I am 85. I can no longer afford the luxury of storing up my experience, emotional responses, opinions, ideas, etc., to be used later. For at my age later could well never come. So whatever I want to say, or rather to write down, since for some time now I have been fancying myself a writer, I would better do it today. 932. A man who follows his penis as if it were a needle of a compass will never get anywhere. 933. When now somebody trained as a linguist become a dressmaker, or the one who has a degree in philosophy work as a sales clerk, it is praised under the encouraging sounding name of career change. Yet, come to think of it, only recently it used to be called a waste of life. 934. Having a university degree without having a permanent address could be considered, in a certain sense, as a positive thing. For one is thus spared the pain of receiving numerous letters of rejection in response to the job application. 935. Having a sense of humor and the corresponding ability to crack the jokes in a kind and friendly manner is nevertheless a double-edged sword. For while some listeners may even the majority find somebody else wit amusing and gladly share the pleasure of laughter, there are always the others who, even if they cannot help laughing, will be jealous of all the favorable attention which a person is getting, and their dislike of the wag will increase in proportion to his success with the rest. And if, God forbid, they have the slightest suspicion, however unfounded, that they are the real target of a jester, then the dislike quickly turns into hate. 936. In the ethnic and national disputes, what each side claims and does depends largely on their respective chronological points of departure. That is, which moment in common history each nation or ethnic group chose to regard as the beginning of its particular one. For example, in the famous Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the Jews have chosen the kingdom of David and Solomon, established around 1000 BC, as the starting point of their particular history, of their political history, where the Arabs of Palestine regard the conquest of Jerusalem in 637 AD was the Muslim armies at the beginning of theirs. Considering such a huge discrepancy in their respective term of references, it is hard to imagine how these two antagonists can reach mutually satisfactory compromise. 936. In the ethnic and national disputes, what each side claims and does depends largely on their respective chronological point of departure. That is, which moment in common history each nation or ethnic group chooses to regard as the beginning of its particular one. For example, in the famous Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the Jews have chosen the kingdom of David and Solomon, established around 1000 BC as a starting point of their political history, while the Arabs of Palestine regard conquest of Jerusalem 637 AD by the Muslim army as the beginning of theirs. Considering such a huge discrepancy in their respective term of references, it is hard to imagine how these two antagonists can reach mutually satisfactory compromise. 937. Some writers are much more interesting to listen to than to read, and whenever I encounter such a writer, I always wonder what kind of metamorphosis his thoughts undergo in the process of writing them down. Why can't the freshness, originality, elegance, and wit of his speech be reproduced on paper? At many public readings I attended, this writer usually devotes a larger part of their performance, or that's how it looks and sounds, to introduction, explanation, and comments on what they intend to read, rather than to the actual reading of a selected excerpt from their works. Sometimes they would even digress into completely unrelated topics. I feel as if they know, only subconsciously I hope, that what they have to say and how they say it is much more exciting than what they have written, and of which they, without realizing it, are somewhat embarrassed. To return back to the question posited at the beginning, though I have no answer, immediate or otherwise, I firmly believe that before trying to find a possible explanation for such a discrepancy between the verbal and writing skills in the same individual, especially in a writer, it has to be acknowledged first that those both mediums, speech and writing, use words, grammar, sentences, etc. as their building blocks, and thus belong to the same genus of communication. Specifically, they are different. Therefore, it should be more expected that a well-spoken person must be also a good writer, or vice versa, than a good singer be actually a good pianist, though the last two crafts also belong to one genus, music. Finally, to prevent any misunderstanding, I would like to emphasize that by saying it should be expected, I don't mean to deny the possibility of combination of both talents in one person. I only want to make it clear that it is extremely rare, and the one who possesses them in equal measures must be an exceptional individual indeed. If I can give you a couple examples, Charles Dickens and Mark Twain could be qualified as such people, equally capable of verbal and writing communication. As for the rest of us, the road to contentment lies in trying not to perceive the absence of the second talent as a fly in the ointment, spoiling the satisfaction of having a single one.